Some viewers may find the following video disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised.
Hey everyone, welcome to the discussion for Tiletum, or however it's pronounced. Funny enough, in this rulebook, they don't actually put in parentheses how it's pronounced. It's a come on.
I think it is Tiletum.
That's how I've heard most people say it.
Right.
So that's just, I'm like, okay, they're gonna know. But then the Dice Tower doesn't know how to say Teotihuacan, so maybe they're not the best source of pronunciation guides. Yeah, so this came out last year in 2022 as part of the T series. Board and Dice actually sent this to me as a review after I'd already bought my own copy. So I was like, great! Never got a chance to get it for the year, but here we are. We've played quite a few T games. You've played Teotihuacan by, on your own, and I've shown you Tekhenu and Terracotta Army. So, what's the other one? You played Zolkin.
The Sun Column one.
Tekhenu.
Okay, Tekhenu.
Yeah, Tekhenu. The only one I haven't shown you is Tawantin Suyu.
Okay.
I think that's the only other one in the T series. But, yeah, this one I wasn't, super interested in just because it looks horrendous, table presence-wise, even though I really like the cover.
Right.
What do you think of Tiletum?
It's fine.
Yeah.
It definitely feels like the T-Series games.
Yep.
So again, because we have been playing them, I think we actually played the other one too. I don't know that we did a review over it. We just played it, I think, one day.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. The one with the weird, you're moving to do your next action. Yes. I don't remember what that one was called.
Yeah, I don't remember what it was called either, off the top of my head.
We did record that, but yeah.
Okay. For me at least, again, playing them kind of in a short window for gaming purposes, they feel very similar to each other, very mechanically similar.
Mm-hmm.
You're doing different things, like your objective is a little bit different. I will say, what I call just replayability on these games is great. Normally, your objectives are always constantly moving.
Mm-hmm.
You never know what your next turns are going to be because you don't know what, per round, because the dice are going to change.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the market, or where the fair is going to be, that's my actual favorite part of the game.
Yeah, that was my favorite part of the game, too. I didn't do it well, but it was still kind of what I was trying to accomplish.
Yeah, this is definitely one of those games, unlike some of the other ones in the T series, where points fluctuate just so rapidly that, by the first round, I was like...
You were in the teens and I was in the 40s.
Yeah, and I was like, I'm going to do so bad. And then I'm like, well, wait a minute. That's 7 points. That's 9 points.
Right.
They're both kind of hand in hand, so that's what I'm aiming for anyway. So we'll see.
Right.
But, especially in a two-player game, but it's really going to be an any-player game, if you miss out on, one fair that's worth a lot of points and someone went all in on it,
it's rough.
It's rough, especially with the way that it randomly comes out, because Leipzig was 9 points for that. I think that was 36 points because I had 5 of those.
Right.
Or 4.
4 of them. Yeah, I had 3 of them.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's right. Because
you
did
build
this
a house. One.
It was Arles. I couldn't remember which one you did miss.
It was 7 points. And part of the reason why it is hard to get all of them well, because you only have 3 actions per round.
Yeah.
So you're getting 12 actions in totality.
Yeah, and this is definitely one of those games that you pick and choose which one you're not touching. And Tiletum, I was like, I don't remember how much that one was.
Unless it was 7 points.
Yeah, it was like 7 points, and it was like, okay, and you went all in on that. You got a bunch of points for that.
Yep.
Just by fulfilling quite a few contracts, and I'm like, I'm not gonna do that.
Yeah.
So
it was an interesting one.
And I enjoy that. I think that it adds for a lot. It depends on what kind of gamer you are. If you're short term, you like doing short goals and doing a bunch of those to get a bunch of points, this game might not be for you, because you can't really do that. You have to understand where you're getting a majority of your points and be like, by round 2, I need to be in Arles.
Right. But I think you also have to be super flexible because if the dice don't come out to your favor, it doesn't matter either.
Yeah, which I will say, what I was surprised about, what I was originally gonna, and I'm curious to see if you agree. I don't think the dice actually screwed us as much. There was one turn where it was like we both needed food, and only one food die came out.
Right.
So that's really, if you're needing a specific resource, then that can be.
But I would say it's like I would agree. The food dice screwed us, but I think it screws more heavily because you get bonus actions. So if you can't get that food early on, like the rest of the resources, if you don't get them early on, it's fine. You'll be able to get contracts completed later in the game. And so I don't need those resources at any one moment almost ever.
Yeah.
Food early on gives you plus actions. So getting these like 2 tokens out on round 3 started to become less and less valuable because it's already round 3. You're taking less action.
Because food, the only thing food is for placing crests out.
And so getting that food on rounds 1 and 2, to me, after that, food becomes a lot less valuable.
Well, I see what you're saying, especially for the action economy, especially if you're for sure planning like, oh, I really want to do more movement, which I did. I had to fucking come all the way down here and then bank over there. So I got the movement one out, which was only a +1. But, see, I think food actually became more valuable, and it could just be different strategies, because by the time I needed to get to Twa, the movement was so low.
Right.
It's like, yeah, a bunch of resources I don't need, because I've already built cathedrals in the 4 places I'm at.
Right.
So that's useless. And I only get to move 1, in my case 2, and I'm in Leipzig, and that would take 1, 2, 3, 4. That would have taken my entire round just to move there. So I did a different action to get the food to get me the 5 to then place this crest down, which let me teleport.
But that only goes to the fact like I had placed my crest there earlier. So it doesn't help you if you've already covered up that crest. So if you're saving it, for instance, to do last minute powers, yep, I agree. But if you've already fulfilled, because I needed to move my caravan across the board anyway, well, then having more food at the end of the game is not helping other than getting other crests out.
Yeah.
But you have to do actions to get those crests.
Yes.
And so if you don't have crests, well, it doesn't really matter at that point.
Yeah, and that kind of ties into the fact that this game is long-term planning.
It is long-term
the entire time. The only time you can short-term do something is at the beginning, where whatever Tiletum is.
Right.
Because other than that, you can only participate in fairs if you have built a house there or your caravan is actually there.
Right.
Which I do like. I like the fact that it wasn't just build a house there, because then otherwise it's like, oh, lucky I got here first and I dicked you over.
Right. So I'll say what's interesting to me is I don't mind randomness in my Euro-style games to a certain extent, like what I call plannable randomness. So you get a hand of cards, like in Brass Birmingham, for what you can build.
Yeah.
I prefer that than having dice dictate what my randomness is. And I don't know why. Because I keep going with the tier series, like, what bugs me every time I play the T series? And it's always the dice. It's always the dice. It's that randomness that bothers me, I think, a little bit. And I think that's just me, personally.
Yeah, because I think... because, like, especially in Brass...
Yeah.
Like, you're not deck building, so it is just kind of, hey, here's your 7 cards.
Yep.
I find it the same. It's kind of like how you said you don't mind randomness in like Ameritrash games, like Combat. And I do, because I'm like... Or games like Kapow, where it's like, well, you rolled better.
Right.
Like, how is that strategy? What does bother me, and why it doesn't affect me in the T-Series, is we roll dice and then we make our choices. Yep. Versus, like, I'd like to move my caravan. How many spaces can I move it?
Right.
1! Right. Like, that shit is trash.
I 100% agree with that. So you still get, and that's what I mean, like, it's randomness in the sense that, like, what is going to be out there and what resource you're going to get, and that, for some reason, does bother me a little bit. Like, it's not game ending, like, I'm still playing them.
Yeah. And I also think, I like the fact that the mitigation is here, but the problem is, depending on how the gold dice roll, is gonna allow you to have more or less mitigation. In this game, gold was super tight.
Right.
I think there was one high value gold this entire, and then you took it, and
Yep.
you were like, I have 8 gold.
Right.
And I was struggling. Like I'm like, I think the most I ever had was 4. And
I
was
pretty
like,
much throughout the game always had 4 or more.
yeah, which is great. You
Right.
want to have that mitigation, and I think Terracotta Army had ways to mitigate
Yep.
where you can place, and I think that in Euro games that needs to be there.
Yes.
Like older Euro games, there was none of that, and it was
Right.
all about who knew the game the best, and that's who was
Right.
going to win.
Right.
This does allow for, do I want to take that food? Because I wasn't going to take that food die because I knew you needed it, and I'm like, I don't really need it. I need to move, but then I'm like, oh no shit, I need crests out,
Right.
and that requires food. So I'm like, ugh. I'm not hate. I want to make very clear I'm using the food.
Right. But again, to me, I agree with the actual move because the crests matter more to get them out, in my opinion, somewhat for powers. And those are a little bit situational, but realistically for me, it's action economy.
Yeah.
Why
that,
on earth
and
are you not getting more action economy out there?
and it's also end game scoring.
Yeah, again, that's long-term playing because, again, you should be trying to get
if you
as many
fill
as
that
you
out,
can.
that's 30 points, which is huge on top of the free actions of placing
Right.
a house anywhere and placing a column anywhere.
Right.
And, and
And so it's those things that, to me, I agree that's I call it power. But the earlier you can get out, the better because, like, again, you get the +2s out there. So kind of what you're going with, movement or, in my case, crown, power, you can get some value out of it.
Mm-hmm. I do really like the way I do like the dice system in here. It's a little, if you play Tekhenu, it was like it is similar. They did that rondelle kind of
Right.
thing that with like the obelisk move
Right.
and that determined where dice went. All that kind of stuff. In this, it's a lot more simple.
Yeah, it's a lot more
just
straightforward.
Roll your dice. The color of the die is how many resources you get and what type. And then the opposite is your actions, which I actually really like. It's like
I do like that.
I don't want 6 steel. I want to move. I'm only getting to move once.
But also you can plan this because it only moves once per round.
Mm-hmm.
So you can start the game like, okay, so this is my setup. It's round 1. I know that next time contracts are going to have 6 actions, then jokers are going to have 6 actions, and then king actions are going to have 6 actions.
Yes.
I know that for a fact. That's what it's going to be. Whether there are any dice in those spots, that's a different question.
Exactly.
But you know for a fact what that wheel is going to look like throughout the entire game.
Yeah, and dice wrap, so it's like, we rolled a 1, I really wanted to move up the King's Crest. Oh, I'll just spend 2 gold and flip it.
Right.
Flip it over and make it, so now I can just jump up here. Because, I would say this is one of those games that it's kind of pointsality in the...
Yeah.
Not that every action is giving you points, but there's a lot of ways to get points. Oh, free action, just, build a part of the cathedral.
Right.
Move all the way up here, and then you also get that bonus. And, like, if you're constantly staying up here, that's 15 points.
Right.
I like the fact that there's free actions.
Yep.
That's just nice. This game kind of felt good the entire time. Like, I wasn't sitting here like, if I don't get 2 stone, I am fucked. My whole game is fucked.
Right. I never felt like the resources that I gathered, they mattered, but they only matter in the sense like, okay, what am I going to use that resource for?
Right.
It wasn't like, I have to have this resource other than the food in the very beginning. Other than that, it was like, whatever resources I get, I can solve a problem with those resources.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's super easy to get some. Yeah, you might be because you're going to take dice, like, I would like a bunch of stone. Okay, I'm just going to take that 6 stone. I'm not going to move anywhere.
Right.
And the fact that you have these bonus tiles.
That's actually probably my favorite part, is the bonus tiles.
Oh, I thought it was that.
No, that was your favorite part.
I thought you said that was also my favorite part.
Oh, I know, I really enjoyed that fact.
But the bonus tiles.
The bonus tiles are by far my favorite part.
Gotcha.
Yeah. This to me is incredibly smart.
Yeah.
I like this because it forces you to plan ahead, because otherwise this game wouldn't require any planning ahead.
Yeah, like I made the joke when we were setting up. I'm like, man, what if this game it was Tiletum, then Paris, then Troyes, then Leon? It's just like, so we never have to move. It's just like boop boop boop.
And to me, that actually the locations matter less than what your goal was.
I actually disagree, because that last goal of certs ended up being dog shit because it was at the very end. Because the static printing is the 1,
Right.
plus. So if that 3 was on the third one,
Right.
for each contract, that's 6 points.
Yeah.
Which would have been, for you, 30.
Right.
So I think the placement of your goal... Well, I think they both matter. They clearly both matter. But... So I'm actually... why do you think the locations matter the most?
No. I think these matter the most. The locations are... You just have to solve that problem of how to
Oh,
get there
okay.
if you're going to do
You
this.
said location, so I was like...
so
the objective.
The objective matters more what order. And so, like, very fact that these two were basically this one's first, then this one.
Yeah.
Matter way more.
God, yeah, flip it.
If it flipped, it would be a lot worse. Because you have time, because I can spend my entire time building houses, then next time just build columns.
Yeah, and I think that's why is because the one for pairs of houses and columns is worth more. So if that was in the second one, that's 11 points per pair.
Yes.
And you're like, cannot, like, because if you were able to, like, if I was able, because I got here in turn 1.
Right.
No, I mean, it's not hard.
No.
Depending on how the dice come out. It's like, okay, I pop into Arles, I'm just going to stay there and do the rest of my actions.
Right.
Moving my architect.
Right.
And just popping pillars down. But it's really good.
It is good.
Like the objectives being, because there's a bunch in the book, or in the book in the box.
Yeah.
So it's not just like, oh, it's these 4 locations. Like there's a shit ton of like locations and objectives.
Variety is good in this game. I'll put it that way. I mean, I in my opinion, basically everything is movable. The only things that are static from game to game are the cathedrals and the point values that they're going to be in.
Right.
That's the only thing that's static. Everything else is
how much
bonus and how much it costs to build that cathedral is not. It's going to be random every single time.
All the bonus tiles
are always random every single time. This is spun to determine at the start.
Yeah. I mean, probably base game. This might have the most variety I've seen in the T series.
It has the most variety than a lot of games, period, because everything's just, I would call it, in essence, open, because it's just going to change every time.
Yeah, and, I mean, for a footprint of production quality, it's like they didn't add all these variants and modules to be like, okay, well, use these locations for... It's like, nope, just shuffle those up, set it up, and you're good to go. This game is also... Because it does have aspects of their other games. It has to at this point. It's the same designer.
Yeah.
One of the same designers. So it's like, okay, I'm seeing some Tech Henu stuff. There's no worker placement, so it's not really... but it's utilizing dice, which they all do, except... I don't think Tawantin Suyu uses dice. I think that's worker placement.
Zolkin doesn't either.
Okay.
Use dice.
Yeah, and Zolkin's that weird one. It came out so early. That's like, is that part of the T series?
Right.
But yeah, Teotihuacan, Tech Henu, Tiletum, and Tabanusi. That was the other one.
Yes, that's the other
one.
one.
That one used dice as well.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't really have like a whole lot of complaints. I think I think this is actually, it's a little lighter.
Yeah.
Like, I think this would probably be, like, mid. I think a lot of board and dice games that I've played, which the only one I haven't played. Oh, and there's another one that Trismegistus, that no one gives a fuck about.
Okay. Yeah, I haven't even heard
I have it down there. I haven't played it. I heard it's bad. I haven't played Zolkin, but every other one I think are a little heavier. I think there's a lot more going on in Tech Henu for sure.
Right.
And Teotihuacan.
Yeah.
So, and Tawantin Suyu definitely has a lot going on, too. So... This one is a pretty good intro. If someone's like, oh, which one should I get out of the T-Series? I've heard they're really good. I'd probably say this one.
I would probably too, yeah.
Just because you're going to be able, if you play this, you're going to be able to go to those other ones and kind of be familiar with how their mechanisms work. Obviously, they're all different, but you're going to be like, oh, okay, I know how they use dice.
Right. And placement of stuff and getting tons of points. Most of these games definitely run in the high point values.
Yes. And they can, and like this one could probably be a little demoralizing if you miss out on a Renaissance and someone jumps 30, 40 points.
Right.
But then you're just, I mean, you alter your tactic. You're, okay, I missed an Arles that got, or Leipzig, whichever one, that got 36 points. You know what? Next 2 rounds, I'm going to fill this out.
Right.
Fill this out completely. That's going to give me a bunch of points there, as well as 30 points at the end of the game.
Right.
And there was actually one time, so like I took the food from you, and then the next time, I don't know if you intentionally did it, but I was like, because I was trying to build more houses, and I couldn't fill this one out because I think there was one person left that I could have taken that had the crown on it, and you ended up taking her. And I'm like,
not for those people, because I had these were my very first two.
There was someone I thought that you took. Oh no, it wasn't the people. You took the die. There was one die there that let you take people, and I was like, dang it. And I had no gold, because right before that I had spent all my gold to do a different action.
Right.
So then you took the die, and I'm like, oh, I can't change it because I didn't have any gold to change that. I'm like, dang it, so I can't even.
And I think the only reason I took that is because I still had two people here, and I needed to clear out the space because I was basically. There were multiple times I could have taken extra tiles, but I had no space there. I was like, this is enough. I got to do it and start filling up locations.
Yes. And I do like the fact that even though you are restricted to 4 tiles, it didn't feel all that restrictive.
No.
Like the bonus ones, it's like, boom, I took that to use it immediately, or I'm going to save it maybe.
Right.
But yeah, if you're trying to just really bombard, like, get 4 people to then save up and then just, like, put them all out at once with a bunch of crests.
Right.
You can't really sandbag in this game. But yeah, so that was one time I'm like, dang it. Like, how am I going to...
Especially if you have no goal to mitigate the dice.
Yeah, which was... I mean, that was my entire fault. I just spent it, and I was thinking, well, I took his food, so it only makes sense that he's looking at my board and thinking...
I honestly didn't even look at your board.
That's what I thought you did.
It was cleaning up my board.
Yeah. Which, and I would say that in all the T games, there's really nothing that's like, I'm going to fuck you over.
Right.
Like, it doesn't really have any of that. Because most of the time, if someone's doing their own action, it's to benefit them.
And most of the games require long enough planning that taking time to go and mess with another player is probably burning you harder in the long run.
And it always makes sense. Like, if we're playing Teotihuacan Walk-On and you see I have 7 masks and there's one I don't have, you're like, well, I can't really let him get that because that's going to be a 600-point swing.
Right. Because
masks are insane.
Yes.
Yeah, honestly, what's funny is I was going into this discussion kind of on the same boat. I'm like, yeah, it's fine. Yeah, this is all right. But as we've talked about it more and more, it's kind of opened up more of, like, the depth of the game. And I do enjoy, and I'm like, yeah, you know what, I actually really like this.
Yeah, it's probably my second favorite.
Really?
Of the T-Series. Partially, it is lighter.
It is lighter, but still has the depth there. We're not sitting here like...
It's still a good Euro game. It's still... Yeah. You're still playing, but it is, I call it, more forgiving. Mm-hmm. Where a lot of the games, you need specific resources at specific times.
Yeah.
Otherwise, kind of wasted 3 or 4 actions.
Exactly. And
Here, I didn't feel like that.
No, not at all. Like, at the very beginning, because we weren't quite familiar with how this game worked, I was like, oh, I'm already losing. Which in a lot of games, if someone jumps 30 points ahead, it's like, oh, I'm fucked.
So when you were like, oh man, because I was like 40 and you're like at 90, I was kind of like, but it flips to 200, it doesn't matter. 30 points isn't going to change anything.
No, it really doesn't. And then it was kind of like Arls, Leipzig, and Troyes.
Yeah.
I was able to do, and I'm like, and that's what I'm saying, is if you're someone who enjoys long-term planning, which I'm a little bit of a mix, it depends on the game. Like, a lot of the games, I'm like, I understand, like, end-game objectives. I'm like, okay, like, obviously I'm going to keep those in mind. But I do a lot of, like, little points and hope that adds up to being, like, a lot of Euro games I jump out to a lead, and then latter half of the game, it starts dwindling, and I'm like, I just hope I jumped far enough that I'm able to maintain that. And here, it's, it just feels good. Like, you play it, you clear, like, you see Troyes the entire time, and you're like, okay. And then if you fulfill it and you get a bunch of points, that's rewarding.
Right.
It's also demoralizing if you don't get it, but...
Right.
But still, it's very apparent.
Yeah, I mean, again, like most good Euro games, there's not hidden points.
Yeah.
There's no secret objectives for everyone to accomplish.
Nope.
So, yeah, I mean, I enjoy that type of game.
Mm-hmm. Contracts are super easy. And the other thing is there's 5 resources.
Right.
And it's really nice that it's like, oh, like, those resources are specifically used in specific spots.
Right.
Like, you're never going to need gold and stone to fulfill a cathedral. You
Right.
just know stone is for cathedrals. You
Yep.
know wool and steel are for contracts.
Right.
And then you know food is for crests.
Yep.
And then gold's kind of your wild.
Yeah.
I think that's fantastic.
Yeah.
It's just so nice to just not have to be like, oh, okay, so that contract needs 9 steel and 3 gold and 2 food, and that's 17 points. Is that fucking worth it? Nope, just 9. I got a 17 pointer just by I kept happening to take wool.
Right.
And it's like, oh, hey, I got this. All right.
Right.
Not going to need that for anything else. You don't have to spend it and hope or be like, oh, God, I really hope I don't need wool somewhere else.
Right.
Nope. It's just all in the contracts. So I think that they made a midweight euro, I'd say, probably mid, but made it accessible.
Yeah.
Only complaint, I hate the dye colors.
Yep, I hate the dye colors.
I don't know why they went that off color, because it's like...
They did it for all their games. All their games have this weird dye
But Tekken makes sense, because it's like, okay, the black dye is the dark area, the brown dye is the middle, and then the white and gold is the light. Like, that makes sense. Here, it's like, okay, we have wool. That should have just been a white dye. Like, keep the dark gray if you want to do stone, and then the blue for steel. Like, everything else makes sense. Really, my only complaint is the lighter gray is wool.
I mean, so my complaint is, of all the colors that you have in the entire freaking world, you chose 3 blue-gray colors for 3 of your
You got
dice.
darker gray, lighter gray, and then a bluish gray.
And then pink and yellow.
And then, in this neoprene, I will say, actually, as the board filled out, I'm like, I kind of like the beige with the neon kind of colors.
Yeah, when you said, like, this is super, not colorful, it's like, yeah, but it's fine. It's not like a bad color.
I actually really like the design of the board.
I do too.
If this was wiped and someone pulled this out, it's like, yeah, it's a euro. You couldn't even put any, like, this is you couldn't put any just like triangles for trees or mountains or something. You couldn't put some decor. And Teotihuacan is not Teotihuacan. The T series is normally pretty good at having little details just to give their map some depth. This one does not have any of that.
Yeah, but to me it also looks like, okay, if you're merchants, you're all sitting around a table, there's your, ledger, your badge.
I mean, I guess these are supposed to be ribbons, like to bookmark where you're talking about in your ledger. Right. It works. It's serviceable, but
yeah. Again, you're building it up, and so that's the answer is, well, you don't want to clutter up too much because you are putting quite a bit of stuff on the board.
Yeah. And then, because actually, Tekkenu, I think, is actually one of their ugliest boards, and someone was like, I think it's beautiful. I'm like, okay, brown must be your favorite color.
Right.
But yeah, so really only production complaint I have is the fact that their dye colors, because multiple times it's just kind of like grabbing that, and it's like, okay, I'm going to grab 6 stone. Nope, that's wool.
Right, and that was my thing, is like...
And the game can get kind of cluttered, because there were multiple times I'm like, where the fuck is my architect?
Yeah.
Like, I'm like quickly trying to find him. I'm like, I don't know. Oh, okay, there he is.
Yeah, I did that a couple times too.
Which can be kind of important when you're making your action and you're like, oh, I'm over there. Like, whenever I was up here and I was trying to come down, I was like, oh, that's 4 actions. You're like, no, it's 5. And I'm like, it happened to work out.
But yeah.
But that can be like, oh, no, dang it.
Which to me, that's where, like, if you had put trees and lakes on the board, it would just make it even more cluttered.
True.
So, yes, in the beginning of the game, it doesn't look great. By the end of the game, there's enough stuff on that map that adding more drawings to it will just clutter up at the end game.
Yeah.
Especially in 4 players. Like, if you had this at 4 players.
True. Yeah, and at the same time, like, another aspect I didn't quite like is I really like the building of the cathedrals, and you can only participate once, but there were multiple times where I was trying to figure out if I built somewhere.
Yes, I did,
and
too.
I'm like, okay, I'm there. Oh, I haven't built there. Like, there was one, I think it was, like, for, like, 9 points or something. I'm like, oh, yeah, right here.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, I haven't done that one. Yes, I have.
Yeah.
Like, you just, even though you keep them next to you to showcase that, it's not, I'd like things to be immediately obvious, like, I mean, I guess you could, like, tip it, but it's going to roll.
That was one of my things, was like, okay, because I'm like, okay, I have all this stone to build a cathedral, and I'm looking around, I was like, oh, I only have 3 pillows out.
Yeah.
And I've already bought all.
I guess that probably is the way you do it, is you count up how many pillars you've done. Like, okay, I've done 5, I only have 5, so therefore I must have built those already.
But the thing I don't like about that is that I want this to cover up the spot of the pillars.
Yeah.
Instead. Because otherwise, you have to know, like, oh, you only have 7 pillars in total in the game.
Mm-hmm. And 1, 2, 3, 4, and 7 houses.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, it's like, yeah, you could just count your pillars and be like, okay, so I must have, like, if I had 4 and put 5 pillars out, then that must have been like, okay, well, I can build somewhere that I haven't before.
Right.
It's just not as
straightforward.
It's not as straightforward, yeah.
Yep.
Other than that, I really enjoy seeing, because I mean, my entire heritage is German, so it's nice to see some places I've been.
Yep.
Like, I've been to the Cologne Cathedral, which is gorgeous. The only one that's not on here, which I was surprised if you're going cathedrals, was Ulm. Because that one, like I was telling you the other day, actually has, I want to say, the biggest cathedral in the world, or it was at the time I went 9 years ago. So that would have been cool. But I do like seeing it, because cathedrals are amazing.
Yeah.
You got anything else?
No, I'm good.
On a scale of 1 to 10, what would you give Tiletum?
Solid 8.
That's where I'm at too. Yeah. I wasn't sure if you were going to go 7, but
it's good.
I was going to say 7 at the very beginning, but then as we talked about, I'm like, you know what? No, like, yeah, this is a really good 8.
I was honestly debating between 8 and 8.5 is somewhere there. I think for me it's an 8 still.
And there is some. They did. I don't know if this comes in every game, but they did add a. Or maybe these are for the solo. This might be for the solo player. Yes, that's. But I could have sworn they had a module that gave like a different objective, or like just more variation for setup at the beginning of the game.
Well, they had the random setup.
Yeah, that's another thing. Yeah, in terms of those locations and objectives being completely different, your actions can be...
The order of those actions should be completely different, so that way it's not always, if Architects is 4, then people
And they do that in Teotihuacan with the locations. You can go with the printed, or you could flip it. Yeah, so it's like you can do that, and then... Okay, so then it's going to change in what order, which then changes how significant the die values are going to be.
Right.
Boop. Which I think is really cool, too.
Yeah. Again, this game has a lot of variety.
Yep.
You can... Basically, everything is fully changeable.
Yeah, which is great.
Yep.
Okay, so you got anything else?
Nope, that's it.
Cool. All right, well, that's our thoughts on Tiletum. Let us know what you think of the game in the comments below. Other than that, like, comment, share, and subscribe, and have a wonderful whatever time of day it is for you. Hey everyone, thank you for watching, and I really hope that you enjoyed the video. If you would like to see more of my content, go ahead and click that subscribe button and the bell to be notified whenever I upload any new content. If you feel like supporting the channel, you can go ahead and click that Patreon link to be taken to my Patreon, and any help is truly appreciated. Other than that, stick around for any other run-throughs or reviews or cool top 10s or whatever I feel like putting on. Other than that, like, comment, share, and subscribe, and have a wonderful whatever time of day it is for you.